Hello everyone, welcome to the Data Engineers Club, Sumit this side. So here we are coming up with yet another very interesting big data mock interview. So Satinder Singh would be taking the interview and he would be interviewing Aditya Patil. So let me talk a little bit about Satinder. Satinder has 12 plus years of experience in the IT industry. He is currently working as a data engineer, senior data engineer rather, in American Express, which is a top company to work for. Now, he has a very strong command over SQL and he has worked on variety of technologies in the big data ecosystem. I personally know Satinder for last 5 years and I can really say his skills are rock solid. And if he want to understand a topic, he goes really deep into it. So it will be very interesting to see how Satinder will be taking the interview. Now, on the other side, we have Aditya Patil, who is working as a data engineer at Capgemini and he has around 3 years of industry experience. Now, he has worked on variety of technologies including Apache Spark and AWS Cloud. So his primary skill is around AWS Cloud, where he has worked on AWS Glue, Lambda, CloudWatch, Redshift, and he has worked on PySpark too. So this will be a super interesting interview and I'm sure this should help everyone. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Do subscribe now and that should be a good motivation for us to keep coming up with new videos. So let's start with the interview.
Hi Aditya. Good evening. How are you doing today?
Good evening, Satinder. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I am doing fine.
Wonderful.
So, Aditya, good to have you in this discussion. So, before we go ahead, would you mind giving a brief introduction about yourself?
Sure. So, Satinder, I have been working in big data technology for past 4 years. I have started working as an intern. Before my actual experience, I was an intern at a startup. After that, I started working with different service-based industries. And currently, I'm working with Capgemini India as a big data developer at a consultant level.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So, if you are a big data developer, so what is the primary project which you are supporting? Could you give me high-level a brief about the data pipeline which you have created?
Absolutely. So, being a big data developer on the day-to-day, running activities, we use the services of SQL, Python, Spark, which is obviously for PySpark, and the services for cloud, we are currently actively using AWS services for now. So to name few AWS services, the one which I use on day-to-day basis for my project is AWS S3, Glue, Lambda, Redshift.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So, do you deal with batch data, streaming data, or what is basically a data pipeline flow? Basically, what all data sources which you leverage to ingest the data into your lake? Can you give me high level architecture flow, that what are the different lanes in your project currently which you are using?
Sure. So on a high level, we have a pipeline which is based on the services of S3, Lambda, Glue, and Redshift. Okay. So we are working on a process of ETL where we have a data which is a source for us is S3, Amazon S3, which is a storage. And the Redshift is the warehouse which we have been, targeting our data into. And this entire pipeline is based on these four services. Basically the ingestion, firstly to come on the very basic question which you asked is that I'm currently working on a batch processing data. Okay. So once we get a batch processing data, we have developed a pipeline in such a manner that we have set it an orchestration where the data is, fetched through the orchestration from S3. It is transformed into the service of Glue, in the PySpark scripting and ETL, different ETL services like data catalog and PySpark scripting itself. And once that is completed, we shift the data to the Redshift so that we have, a specific storage into the data warehousing service.
Okay, so you are finally writing the data to Redshift. So basically,
Yes,
Redshift is the place from where you are rendering the data to the end users, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, and when you are ingesting the data,
Mhm.
so processing framework you use PySpark, right?
Absolutely.
What
Yes.
kind of transformations you are using on the data which you are finally writing it to the persistent storage, and in which format you write the data to Redshift? I mean, what is the data storage format?
So very basically on, on an organization level, we are working on CSV data format itself. So it is the data format which we get the batch process data into our S3. Okay. And besides that, the daily transformation which I use on that specific data is in regards to, filling up the empty columns. Besides that, transforming the data into smaller sections, like, using Spark SQL to create a data and create a table and develop a tabular formation of that specific data to get a small chunk. Uh, uh, Usually, sometimes we also use pivoting itself and, in the data transformation itself. And mm, also, like, filling the void null values, like, sometimes you have some data where it is missing in regards to the numeric value. So to get the mean, or mean of that data, or to get an understanding of the data, so we usually use, filling of the data into the transformation as well, where we have null values.
How do you handle those null values?
So, very firstly, like, as we have a batch data, so we usually uh, take out a chunk of that, we create a new column. Okay. We concentrate on that new column where, wherever we are getting the, like, let's consider that, I have a data set, and in column 2, I have a lot of null, void values, like null values in that specific column. Okay. So what we usually do is that we create a new column to refer to that second column, which I just informed, and then we, fill that values with whatever the mean value which we would think. Like, usually we take it as 1, but whatever the value we think that, it would be beneficial to go ahead and, prosecute the data and have a specific insight from that data further. So we used to fill that. Like,
Have
let's
you ever worked on functions like drop, na, and fill? Those are the data frame functions, because those are the one which we predominantly use to handle the null
Yes, yes,
values.
yes. Absolutely. So, as I explained that, if I'm trying to fill it out, so we will be surely using a dot with column, which we preferably use to
Yeah,
develop a
dot with
column.
column is something like
And
adding the new
yeah,
column into
yeah.
a data frame, but drop, na, is the function which is predominantly used to handle the null values.
Yes, absolutely. So sometimes, if we have to entirely drop it, we use dot drop na as well, dot fill na, or, such transformations, basically to, if we want to add out the data.
But drop, fill, na will basically,
No,
I mean, you don't have to even add the extra column. You can simply replace the null values in single shot. So whenever we are talking about the big data, right?
no.
So adding an extra column will be in extra storage. Although we are working in the big data system, so storage is like something
Absolutely.
which we are not bothered about. But
Mhm.
predominantly when we are looking at it, so this is something kind of a performance optimization perspective which I am giving you. You should directly use the drop, fill, na, and then you can
Absolutely.
do it. Okay. So cool,
Absolutely.
cool. So I mean, if you have to render the data, have you heard about the different file formats, and which file format is good when we have to render the data to our end users, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm aware about different, file formats which you have, like, one which I'm working on, like, that is dot, CSV, but we also have like Parquet file format or JSON file format as well, which, we usually have work. But most preferably, if we are, trying to target out this smooth experience for the end users, we would any which was, prefer for dot Parquet file format.
Why? Now my question is, Parquet is one of the best file formats. So this is
Yes.
what I want to hear. I mean, why do most of the people prefer Parquet or the ORC file format? What is the special thing about those file formats?
Basically it goes ahead and partitions the data. It distributes the data in such a format and in a compressed format that it is quite easy for us to go ahead and have, like, not for us but for the end users, it is easy for them to recall the data at a faster pace.
Okay, so one more tangent which I would like to add over there. So Parquet and ORC are the columnar based file format. So whenever we are rendering someone, so nobody would wants, like, if I would render the data in the CSV file format, you have to scan the whole row, right? So
Yes,
columnar file format is always preferred just because of the faster retrieval purpose.
absolutely.
That's how we basically broadly divide the file formats into the two categories, row-based and the columnar-based file formats. And Parquet is the Spark native file format. If you store the Spark data frame
Yes.
as in save as table option, so that
Mhm.
table will be created in the Parquet file format, right? So
Yes.
that's the Spark native file format. And the reason being is it's a columnar file format, and columnar file formats are always
Mhm.
optimized for the read purposes, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, okay. If I talk about Hive, so do you know what are the different type of joins in Hive?
Sure. So basically, like, also for Hive and for PySpark as well, we use different types of joins basically. So if I could name few, so we have inner join, outer join, which also we prefer as full outer join. We have left outer join, right outer join, and like semi joins as well, like left and left semi join as well, which is not usually used by us, but yes, I'm aware about that.
So those are NC SQL joins. So if I am talking about Hive specific join, so if we talk
Yeah.
about the big data systems, so
Mhm.
one of the main painful tasks in big data system is the shuffling of data, right? Which is very,
Yes,
very
absolutely.
painful, and it's in compute
Mhm.
sensitive operation. So just from the Hive perspective, just think over it. I mean, do you have any idea about how we can minimize shuffling? There is a term called as in joins in PySpark also, and in the Hive side also. There is a
Yes,
specific
yes.
term when we talk about those joins. So what's that special term we call?
Sure. So that specific, type which you're asking me, which I would also like, I would consider it into quite on an optimization part as a broadcast join. So, if you are specifically trying to go ahead and, term it out for a reduction of a shuffling. So I would name it, like I would like to mention broadcast join in this.
Okay. Can you explain me little bit in detail how broadcast join will avoid the shuffling?
Sure. So, very minimalistically, if we go ahead and, try to understand broadcast join. So, firstly, broadcast join is more focused on, broadcasting a smaller set of data on a different, different nodes which are available in our cluster. So basically, when we are going to go ahead and, perform any specific kind of join. So, but we don't need to have an entire data to be shuffled, which will eventually, cost us a lot of frequency to be, utilized. That is eventually going to cost the organization, and it is going to eventually increase the cost of the system. So basically, what in broadcast join we do is that we broadcast the smaller data set on the different nodes which are available, so that whenever we have to go ahead and perform the joins for that specific data set, so it will be done within that specific node instead of entirely shuffling the data across the different nodes.
Okay, okay. And is there any property which we can add it in the Spark to control the broadcast join? Have you ever heard about any property?
Hmm. To be honest, I'm not
Okay, so there
quite
is a
aware
property
about that.
called as spark.sql.auto broadcast join threshold. So let's
Oh.
say if someone wants to turn off that join,
Mhm,
so you
mhm.
have to make it like spark.sql.broadcast join equals to -1. So by that way, we can
Okay.
disable. Okay, fair enough.
Oh.
Not a big deal. So if I talk about the typical architecture of a Spark application, so
Mhm.
can you, I mean, share, you are in front of your system, right? Can you write down how will you start writing the Spark application? in PySpark, a very high level flow. How do we what is the first thing which we do when we define a Spark application?
So like the very first thing which we define is the Spark session,
Okay.
in this Spark application. So if if we are writing, like basically it usually is a boilerplate code in all the organizations, but if you are going to go ahead and track it down. So firstly we invoke the Spark session. After that we define the master, like what will be the master, like what will be the resource, and after that we go ahead and uh, define the different variables into that specific what I would say, like in that specific session, like as we are about to start the session, what will be the different resources, or what we need to use it on, and that in that specific program.
Okay. Okay. So there is a method called as in the Spark session builder. So this is
Yes.
bit from the architecture perspective. I wouldn't expect like a 4 years experience to answer it. But have you ever heard about what? Have you ever thought that what does that builder pattern does?
Uh, so builder is basically used to it will be used to invoke that specific session. Like we are building a specific the Spark session which we are about to build up. So builder will help us to invoke that session to
So
start out that session.
builder is basically a design pattern which helps us to create the multiple context within one single. So what used to happen is when we talk about the uh, like someone who is having like I am having rich experience in big data. So
Mhm.
when we have started developing Spark, so we used to write the Spark context, SQL context, Hive context. So
Yeah.
builder is basically a design pattern which helps us to create the multiple context within one single Spark session. So Spark session is like one single unified entry point for every Spark application,
Yes.
be it streaming, be it batch, or whatever we want to do. So Spark session is the single design pattern. So that is the background story behind the builder. I intentionally
Mhm.
asked this architect question. So usually we
Yeah.
don't expect this answer from someone who has recently started learning, but it's good to know that builder is design pattern which helps us to create the multiple context within one single object. Okay.
Okay.
So
Thank
that's
you.
it. Something about the what are the different type of partitioning in Hive?
Different type of partitioning. Actually, to be honest, I've not worked on Hive like
No, no,
currently.
it's like
Uh,
the Spark. I mean, let's say you
uh,
have to. Let me give you a scenario based question. There is a like a month over month process which is like running. So month
mhm.
over process, I want to every month's data I want to do it load append. So how would you create this pipeline? We wouldn't be like creating a fresh table every time. I would like to load append the data for every month processing. So in that is the case wherein the partitioning comes into picture. We will write the data for every month into the latest partition. That's
Yeah.
how we basically think it from the perspective, because every time. So you know about managed table and external table. What is the difference between both of them?
Yes. So I am aware about the managed table, and what are the external tables. Like yes, we basically use it into um like we use it into the Spark SQL sessions usually. What are like to explain out what are the exact tables into this. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So I mean, have you worked on the Spark performance tuning?
No, to be honest, I haven't worked, precisely on Spark performance tuning. But I have been a supporting individual into the project for that.
Okay, fair enough. So you know the difference between repartition and coalescence Spark?
Yes, yes, like
What's the difference between both of them? And in which case we should like, let's say I want to decrease the number of partitions. So what would be the preferred approach, repartition or coalesce?
I would say coalesce will be, the preferred one.
Why?
So, to tell you that it does not involve a full reshuffle of the data across, across the cluster. All the data from, respective partitions will be merged into the new partition. So basically, it is quite faster than repartition due to less shuffling of data, I can say.
Okay. So, have you worked on any of the like NoSQL DBs?
No, as far as I'm governing my current project, so no. Like I would be honest here, but I have not got an opportunity to work on that specific part.
Okay, so I will jump over to the SQL structures now. So, I mean, if you want to write down, you can write down the question which I am going to ask.
Hmm.
Let's say there is an class table,
Okay.
and in class there are like 50 students,
Okay.
and for 50 students, like the data is like every student has given like five subjects, right? There are five subjects, there are marks, and I want the subject wise topper in I want the subject wise topper student name. Can you write down the SQL construct? I basically want to know the approach. How would you approach this problem?
So sure, I will just I would mostly like subject wise topper if we are trying to consider for that specific class. So we will go ahead and uh, prefer row number,
Good, good, good,
before,
good, good,
yeah.
good.
So like we will be grouping out the students basically, and then we will be preferring out like, what we need, like we will be processing it after grouping, we will be giving a row number to that specific,
Can you write this SQL query and ping me in the chat window? A very high level.
Sure, sure.
So just, I mean, at the high level approach would
Uh-huh.
also work, right? You can start typing, and a high level approach will suffice.
So just to give you a high level approach, so I'm going to go ahead and partition the student as per the subject. Okay. Uh, for each subject, and so yeah. So if we are going to go ahead and try it out to, so I will usually I will try to go ahead and partition it by the subject. Okay. And then order it by their marks. Okay. And then I would use a row number function over that specific partition and ordering.
Excellent. That's how it should be done, right?
Yeah.
So another SQL construct, right? With the or probably the last one in our discussion. So
Mhm.
let's say um, so there is a data set called as employee ID, and there is a data set called as the department table. So employee ID is the primary key in the EMP table, and again employee ID is the like foreign key in the department table. Now I would like to basically know how much is the maximum, I mean, which employee is getting the maximum salary, and he's working in which department. So if you talk about the schema of the employee table, right? So employee table, you can see employee ID, employee name, then that same employee department table, department ID is the primary key, then we have the employee ID, then we have the like department name. So I would like to get a list of like basically every employee is working in which department, right? That's the high level construct which I would like to know. So what would be the approach to solve this problem?
Mm.
I can basically ping the schema in the chat window also.
Sure. So that will be helpful.
Employee table has the column like employee ID. Then we have the employee name.
Okay.
Then we have the employee state. Then we have the department table. Department table has the department ID, which is the
Okay.
primary key. Then we have the department name. Then we have the employee ID, right? So I want the final output table, employee ID, employee name, and the department name in which the employee is working, right? That's what I want.
Okay. So I will just try to solve it with a simple SQL query.
Yeah,
Uh,
do it with a simple SQL query.
okay. So just to, quickly make you explain, the query, I might, I can take some time and write it out entirely.
No. I just want high level approach, how you will get the data from these two tables.
Yeah. So basically from, department table, I will take the department ID and also the second, second input, which I will take it as a max of employee salary from the department, from the employee table, just in case, like employee name. Okay. So so for a case where we have to find a salary, okay, specifically if I'm about to find a salary, just in case I'm giving you an example, an hypothetical example for that. So if I'm about to take, the highest salary for that specific employee, so I will be adjoining these two, what we say, these two inputs and then join it on the specific employee table. Okay. And then group by the department ID again.
Okay. So basically it's a simple join, right? There is no
It
need
will
of
be a
doing
simple join.
it's simple join. Just put the inner join on the employee table
Yes.
with the department table and we can do it. Then basically it's always advisable to use the left join. The reason being is, let's say I would want the information of all the employees, whether they are registered with any department or not, right? So that is the case wherein you have to use the left join.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's fair enough, right? I am pretty much done from my side. So do you have any
Okay.
questions for me?
Besides this, yes. So I actually got a lot of insight from you, giving this interview. But also, as you know, the one who have been working into this industry, I would like to get few highlight points from you that, what actually will be helpful for me to, develop my sense in regards to the big data, where, you would like to, uh, you would like me to specifically focus on, so that,
Few things which I always suggest my teammates also whenever you are developing a batch pipeline.
yeah,
So what people usually do is they try to write the code in a complex manner, right? If
yeah,
you can, the world is drifting towards the SQL way of doing the things, right? If
yes.
the problem could be solved using the ANSI SQL, so use the ANSI SQL and do the processing using the Spark SQL CLI. Ultimately, the engine at the back end would be Spark, right? But your
Uh,
query would be an ANSI SQL construct. So if the problem can be solved using the ANSI SQL way, use the ANSI SQL way and develop the queries. And if at all it cannot be developed using the ANSI SQL, then you should jump to the programmatical way of solving the things, which is the PySpark data frames, which are optimized, right? So
yeah.
basically, in both the cases, we get the support of Catalyst Optimizer and Tungsten Engine, right? Which are like the key optimization technique. So this is one thing, and secondly, put emphasis on the SQL constructs, right? Because again, I am telling rather than uh, delivering a solution in a complex way using the
Mhm.
programmatical approach, sometimes the answer could be delivered using the simple SQL way. So
That's
that's how things which I suggest. And thirdly, which I usually suggest people is always know about the internals, that how at the
Mhm.
backend distributed processing work. What usually people do is they simply jump and write down the PySpark code, right? Nobody knows the rationale behind what does the Spark session does. Like I explained already, what is the builder does. Builder is basically design pattern which helps you to create the multiple context within the single
Mhm.
Spark session. So builder has been earlier when we started working upon Spark in 2018. So those were the days wherein we used to create the Spark context, SQL context, and the Hive context
Oh,
separately.
yeah.
So that's how the in Spark 2.0 they have basically mitigated the problem of writing the multiple contexts. There are some advanced optimization techniques also, like the AQE support coming into. Now we don't have to worry about the partitions queue or things like that. So these are
Mhm.
certain stuff. I mean, knowing the internals is very, very helpful. So will help you grow very longer.
Sure, sure.
Yep.
I will focus on that.
Yep. And also in SQL part, the way we write the queries using the CTs, knowing CT is very, very important, because CTs will help you write the query in most efficient manner, and your code will look neat and clean.
Yes, yes.
Yep. That's it from my side. Anything else?
Thank you.
Yep.
No, that's it. It was a wonderful insight from you, and I will surely,
Yep.
work on that and, try to develop on that specific skill set as per your feedback.
Yep. Thank you.
That was a
Thank you.
wonderful, that
Thank
was a wonderful time from
Yep.
your end. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.